Now, this story is one of the most interesting stories from the 90s NBA of interactions between NBA players and NBA fans. What pushes a professional athlete surrounded by thousands of spectators to suddenly snap, like charge into the stands and clock a fan? You know what I'm saying? Like for Houston Rockets guard Vernon Maxwell, it wasn't just about simple trash talk. He claims it was about a deep personal tragedy that one fan decided to use as a weapon against him. This is the story behind the comment that sparked one of the most shocking moments in NBA history. And I'm going to include a clip in this video of Vernon Maxwell explaining this situation so you kind of have an idea directly from him as well. Now, long before the punch heard, around the league, Vernon Maxwell had built a certain reputation for himself. Commentators dubbed him Mad Max, and for good reason. He was a paradox on the court, a guy with an incredible gift for clutch shooting and a temper that could go from 0 to 100 in a second. As a key player for the reigning 94 NBA champion Houston Rockets that defeated my New York Knicks in the finals, he was a fierce competitor who famously never backed down from anyone, not even Michael Jordan. And there's stories about that as well. They they went at each other, and Jordan respected him for that. Now, he was an offensive force, once dropping a staggering 30 points in a single quarter, but that brilliance was always paired with a volatile streak. His career was a constant tightrope between amazing plays and total combustion. Now, on February 6, 1995, during a game in Portland, that tightrope snapped. Honestly, the game itself was a total wash. The Rockets were getting destroyed by the Trailblazers, and the whole team was frustrated. For Maxwell, that frustration was boiling over thanks to some relentless heckling from the Portland crowd. Fans can be brutal, and we know that. But on this particular night, the noise was just different. And Maxwell himself alleges that the taunts from one man, a 35-year-old Steve George, went from typical heckling to something far more cruel and personal. And if you were to believe his side of the story, I agree 100%. So what was actually said? Well, that's where the story gets really messy. It boils down to a classic he said, she said, or he said, he said. Now, that's still at the core of the controversy. According to Steve George and his brother, they were just giving Maxwell a hard time about his performance. I'm surprised that they couldn't get somebody from within the area to confirm what was said from the fans and so on. But those two brothers claimed they were yelling things like 5 points and 4 fouls, nice game. Just standard sports heckling. George later held a press conference, doubling down on his story and denying he said anything worse. Now, he painted himself as the victim, of course. You're dealing with $1 million NBA player, right? He claimed he had no idea about the personal tragedy Maxwell was going through. And he even said, as a parent of a 3-year-old son and a 3-month-old son, I cannot think of anything worse than losing a child. Now, Vernon Maxwell tells a much darker version of events. According to him, and the heckling had nothing to do with his stats. He insists the fans' comments were deeply personal, hateful, and even racist to a degree. The final straw, the moment that sent him over the edge was allegedly about the single most painful event of his life, the recent death of his stillborn daughter. I'm going to play you the clip of Vernon Maxwell saying all of this in his own words.
I was talking about my stillborn daughter.
Yeah,
you know what
that's
I mean?
crazy.
That was a problem. I kept telling the damn security guard, do you hear what this white boy is saying about my goddamn peoples?
Some goddamn well. Shit, kiss my ass too, motherfucker.
The white boy behind me was talking crazy like, bitch. Sit behind the bench. I was like, man, you better go straight in this. Security guy tell me, Max, I can't do that, man. He pays money. I say, man, do you hear what this man saying? Kenny was sitting beside me and I think Tim Bro. So I got fed up with it. I got tired. I kept telling this So I got up. And when I got up, I was like, man, get your ass out the way. I shoved that about over there to the goddamn whiskey bar over there. I walked patiently.
Terminator.
I slapped the shit out of that motherfucker. And it wasn't worth it. the money, the motherfucker. I was like, God damn, I ain't won't do it like that.
Now, Maxwell explained later that he should have been on leave, and he felt that the court was his sanctuary as well. Now, instead, it became the place where he broke. Maxwell believes the news about his daughter's death was public knowledge, so the fan knew exactly what was going on. Just think about that for a second. You're at your job in front of a massive crowd, grieving an unimaginable loss, and someone uses your pain as ammo for a cheap shot. Now, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments what your response would be. Maxwell claims he didn't just snap blindly. He says he begged for help. He repeatedly told arena security, as you heard in the video, about the fans' vile comments. But they did nothing. He recalled telling the guard, do you hear that this MFer white boy said about my goddamn people? Now, according to Maxwell, the guard told him the fan paid for his seat and had the right to be there, but, shouldn't have the right to say what the hell he wants, right? If it's that derogatory. Now, feeling unprotected and pushed past his limit, Maxwell took matters into his own hands during a timeout in the third quarter. With the Rockets down by about 27, he made his move. He calmly walked off the bench, strode directly into the stands about 10 rows deep, and hit Steve George in the jaw, as you're going to see in the video. While reports at the time and the league called it a punch, Maxwell himself had since described it as a slap. And when you look at the video a couple times, it does kind of look like a slap, but hard to see because the quality of it isn't that great. Now, chaos erupted. Teammate Robert Horry and an assistant coach rushed into the stands after him, trying to break things up. All three were ejected. As George held an ice pack to his face, he immediately told reporters he was pressing charges. And Maxwell and the others left the arena before the game was even over, leaving the league in absolute shock. Star center Akeem Olajuwon said later, everybody's supposed to be a man and be responsible for your actions. I don't think it was wise to go into the crowd, and we'll pay the price. Now, the price was incredibly steep at the time. The NBA brought the hammer down on Maxwell, suspending him for 10 games, which maybe was harsh for then, but imagine something like that happened in today's NBA, the guy would be out for the damn season. So they suspended him for 10 games without pay and fined him $20,000. And at the time, it was the biggest fine ever given to a player in league history and the second longest suspension. 10 games. All right. The league's VP of operations, Rod Thorne, called it unprecedented, stating, we've never had anybody go into the stands unless it was a fight among players that spilled over into the seats. The trouble didn't stop there. Steve George filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against both Maxwell and the Houston Rockets. Maybe not multi-million, but he was seeking like $1.4 million. And there was another lawsuit at about $3.1 million seeking money from the team. Now, the suit was eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. And in one of the videos, Vernon Maxwell is talking about a sum of $500,000, which I don't know if that was the settlement amount and he just spoke out about it when he shouldn't have. But I saw that in one of the videos when he was describing the incident. Now, the incident forever burned the Mad Max persona into the public mind. It also marked the beginning of the end of his time in Houston. While he was serving his suspension, the Rockets traded for superstar Clyde Drexler, who took over Maxwell's starting job and his minutes. So this led to Maxwell quitting the team during the '95 playoffs, a decision he later admitted he regretted. The guy we already know was emotional, so sometimes decisions made on emotion are not the best decisions. So it's always good to sit down, calm down, and then evaluate and make a decision. He wasn't on the roster when the Rockets won their second straight championship that year. The Vernon Maxwell incident is still one of the most jarring player-fan altercations in sports, a clear precursor to Malice at the Palace, which was also crazy, probably even crazier than this. Now, nearly a decade later, that happened. It brings up a tough conversation about where the line is for both athletes and the people in the seats. Let me know now, what Maxwell did, was it justifiable if his story checks out? Because from a legal and professional standpoint, absolutely not. But you can't assault a spectator no matter what they say. The only thing that would explain Maxwell's behavior is normally, yeah, you can't do that and you shouldn't do that. But dealing with mourning his daughter, with being so emotional, he just shouldn't have been there, because it was a disaster waiting to happen in that situation. So if Maxwell's story is true, was he right? Was the fans' verbal attack so disgusting that it provoked an understandable human reaction, especially in the situation that he was with emotionally? Now, for years, Maxwell has expressed regret for his actions, but has never once backed down from his reason, maintaining the fans' comments about his stillborn daughter were the trigger. Now, the story is a raw reminder that athletes we cheer for are human beings. I mean, carrying their own pain, grief, breaking points. And this isn't just about a punch. It's about where heckling ends and harassment begins. It's about a man's deepest strategy being weaponized as a taunt and the explosive fallout that followed. I mean, you can taunt a guy when the game is close. Why taunt him when you're up 27? You know? So it forces us to ask where we draw the line and what responsibility fans have when they're just feet from the action. Now, again, what are your thoughts? What's the punishment fair for that time period, and how can leagues better protect players from this kind of abuse? Let me know what you think below in the comments, and if you found this story compelling, there's more to come. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the untold stories, or very rare stories, of the NBA world and the golden era. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.